Hi, I'm Amy Jepson and I live in Waukee. Who doesn't like free money? I'm here tonight to talk about $17,500. This is the average cost per public pupil in the state of Iowa. That information I got at the Iowa Department of Education website, and it's based on the average cost to educate each student during the year 2020. This $17,500 is the amount of money that Waukee Schools receives per student each year. Here's the approximate breakdown. We get about $7,300 each year from the state. We get about $7,200 from our local taxes. And we get about $3,000 from the federal government per student each year. When looking at the bill proposed by the governor in regards to school choice, only $5,200 of the state money, which is often referred to as SSA, would follow low to moderate income students. I have taught in both the public and private school system. And let me assure you that I do know there's lots of private donors in the private schools who are more than happy to supplement funds for a family if there's a financial need. Private schools always find other resources to cover money, including student tuition organizations. Concerning the cost of the program to taxpayers, the governor's ESA program, if enacted, is expected to have a positive estimated net fiscal impact of $14.7 million on the state's general fund and a positive estimated net fiscal impact of $56.9 million on school districts. Let me repeat that. $56.9 million positive impact on school districts. The combined net fiscal impact on state and local taxpayers in Iowa would be an estimated savings of $40.5 million, or $4,000 per scholarship student. If you don't trust my sources, let's use simple common sense. If we currently educate a child for about $17,000 and then decide to now educate that same child through the same allocated tax dollars for $5,000, we as a community have just saved ourselves $12,000. That $12,000 either goes back to the taxing entity where they then decide to send it back to the public school, or they turn it into a tax savings. So why wouldn't we want school choice? Seems to be the best option for students and our community taxpayers.
Courtney Collier, please.
Courtney Collier, Waukee. I would like to respond to the voucher opposition resolution put out by Waukee Board President Lyon. Facts are a curious thing, and actual facts will show that our board president put out a document riddled with many untrue and misrepresented statements. This leads me to believe it was written not from a standpoint of concern for the community, but from a left-wing partisan position she holds. First, the term voucher is nowhere to be found in any of the potential pieces of legislation now being presented in the Iowa legislature. The term voucher refers to dollars going directly to an organization. This is not what is being considered. Lyon is only using the term voucher because the left considers it an unfavorable term. The correct term being used in current legislation is educational savings accounts, or ESAs, which puts the education dollars directly in the hands of parents to control. Do you see the difference? Dollars directly in the hands of parents is a much more favorable way to talk about educating our kids. In fact, a recent study showed that the Iowa parents of school-aged children support dollars following the student in the form of an ESA by 81%. Yes, 81%. I have a hard time believing that if 81% of Iowa parents support ESAs, that Lori did her consultation with the community, as she claims in her document, in a thorough way. Now, to address some claims Lori made in the resolution. Number one, public dollars are for use of public community members. This is the argument that public dollars should only be used in public entities. This begs the question, what about Pell Grants and the GI Bill, or SNAP food stamps? Or what about Medicaid dollars? What about preschool dollars in Iowa? Parents can use those in private preschools. What about Section 8 housing dollars, or even Social Security? And finally, what about the $50 million that Iowa spends every year on the Iowa tuition grant, which goes to students who attend private colleges in Iowa. All of these entities are using public governmental dollars for private purposes. This partisan talking point is no longer even valid or worth discussion. We're doing this in many ways. Public funds require public accountability and transparency is another claim. It's interesting that this is even brought up since the education establishment is fighting many current transparency bills across our nation and even right here in Iowa. Again, this is a talking point put out by the left, simply not true. When public schools do poorly, they get more money, and parents are forced to continue to send their children there. When private schools do poorly, parents go somewhere else and the school shuts down. Private schools are directly accountable to parents who have the best influence to keep their schools providing high standards, the power of the dollar. This is exactly why ESAs actually make all schools better, and these are just some of the reasons why our family supports ESAs and school choice.
Nate Gerkin.
Good evening, Nate Gerkin. I live in West Des Moines. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I'm here to talk to you about a few things, and as we've just heard, right, school choice is becoming a bigger topic. Why? Well, many of the parents in the current system aren't happy, right? They're digging in and learning and understanding. And so there's a process, sure, right? Get involved, get your voice heard, show up at board meetings, connect with your principals, all those kinds of things. And many of us have been coming here and talking, sharing our thoughts, our concerns, our comments, and even providing thoughts or proposals on what might be an alternative or an opportunity. I would argue that some of that seems to be a little bit more of a formality of policy than anything else. But I have to ask, what are we supposed to do when you're not even aware of what's going on in the community or as a parent, wherein the information is buried or tough to get to? How can you be involved? How can you even be heard? So, for example, again, this recent voucher opposition resolution document that was crafted by President Lyons, right? On behalf of our community, on behalf of the board, on behalf of the administration, all of us parents, it cites, and I quote, "in consultation with its community." I never knew about it. Maybe I missed an email. I've been traveling a lot. I'll own that I missed something along the way, or maybe I'm not accessing information the right way, and that's fine. But there's also about the accountability from the board, your accountability to provide the information in a way that everyone has access to it in a more direct or open way. You know, when you think about it, there's an element of accountability to your customers, your constituents, and that's us, right? We are your customers. How many of the people in the room watching virtually or even watching the recording were aware of the June 21 discussion around this topic, or even the recent one in January of 22? Certainly not myself, and again, I'll own my own piece here that I might have missed it, but I think the point is that it's pretty simple. You're claiming to do this on behalf of us, right, of your customers, constituents, whatever. You're doing it on behalf of our kids, on behalf of my boys, on behalf of the parents here. We're the community, right? And this document and the way it's written is definitely not something that comes on behalf of the community, or at least on my behalf. In fact, this is the reason why we're talking about school choice. This is the reason why we're talking about considering a move, whether it's to another public district or even to private. You know, you think about competition, and only the people who are afraid of competition are the ones who are afraid of the discomfort that's associated with the growth and being better than you currently are. Real quick, I went, and some of you don't know me, but as a kid, I went to public schools all the way through 8th grade. Freshman year, my parents told me I had to go to private Catholic school, and I had to pay half my tuition as a freshman. I didn't grow up with much, by the way, so that was a real strain. I fought for scholarships. I worked hard to pay for my tuition. After my freshman year, my parents said that I could go back to public school if I wanted to. I finished my last 3 years at that same Catholic school and paid my tuition, half of my tuition, year over year to do that. Received a wonderful education. Before time's up, I appreciate the parents. I didn't get to say thank you to Mrs. Stilgers. She deserves better, by the way, okay? Thank you.
Josh Briggs.
Josh Briggs, Urbandale. I'm speaking tonight to address my concerns about the resolution being introduced based on the inaccuracy of the information it provides. It's sharing a lot of personal opinions, and if it moves forward, it should be updated to reflect that. I remember my time as a student at Waukee, when we presented information as fact, we used a little thing called citations, to inform others on where we found our information and where we formed our opinions. At a minimum, this board should hold itself to the same standards that it holds students to. Here are a few more specific reasons why I'm against the resolution. As Courtney alluded to, it's not a voucher program. It's an education savings account that not only supports school choice, but tutoring programs, therapy for children with disabilities, and other educational programs. None of those things were mentioned in the resolution. So if you blindly dismiss the bill, you imply you are also against all of those components. Number two, I've lived in Waukee my entire life, and it pains me to say this, but it's become extremely obvious that we no longer have shared values as a community. There's so many examples of this, but here's two specifically that I think would resonate. Number one, Waukee supports images of oral sex being made available to children. That's just a fact. When I found out about this, I was naive enough to believe that regardless of gender identity and the political climate that we're in, that some level of decency would prevail, and we'd recognize what new standards we're setting for what's allowed in schools. Number two, shortly after that, with the new legislative session, I found out that there's a bill being introduced at the state level that the Iowa School Board Association, or Iowa Association of School Boards, is currently lobbying against. And that's to raise the statute of limitations for child sex abuse. Yes, the School Board Association is lobbying against a bill. I get why they're doing it, to save money. It's about money, not the kids, like everybody likes to say. Then there's the transparency and accountability myth. It's probably true for some private schools that there are a number of transparency issues, but not all private schools are like that. There's no evidence of that. In fact, it actually gives the parents more power and authority to be able to choose a school that aligns with the transparency needs that they have. Speaking of transparency, Waukee has plenty of transparency issues of their own. When excerpts of the books that I was referencing were read in this meeting, there was a statement released by the district that it was part of a large purchase order for the new high school. In fact, it was included within the RFP and requested under recommended titles. I've not seen a retraction of the statement. I've not seen an update saying that it was wrong. Where's the accountability there? Where's the transparency to say, hey, we messed up? The last thing is this statement also shows the disregard of basic economic theory for personal and political talking points. Competition is a good thing. It makes products better and encourages innovation. Mathematica.org conducted an analysis of 35 studies that have been done on school choice. 8 of those studies showed a positive impact on public schools. 1 showed no effect, and not one of those studies showed a negative effect. Another study conducted by a professor at North Carolina State showed that competition with school choice improves test scores for students in public schools and result in state and local financial savings. I'd ask that you reconsider laying out this resolution.
Roxy Bohati. Roxy Bohati.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roxy Bohati. I live in Clive. I have 4 kids who I proudly have been part of the Waukee School District. 3 have graduated, and they're doing wonderful. I actually have more of a message for the board, but since we haven't heard more about this, I do want to say I think it's pretty clear-cut. Taxes are not fun. Nobody likes to pay income tax. Nobody likes to pay property taxes, but they are for the benefit of the community, the whole people. It's not for private organizations. We don't get to decide if we want our money to go to a golf course, membership club, or the public park. We don't get to decide if we want this road paved before this road because we drive on it. It's public money for the public good. But I actually would like to just kind of make this a little more simple. 3 facts. The passage of this bill would result in decreased funding to public schools. That's obvious. Money will be diverted to different schools, private sectors, and as Nate alluded to, also to other services like private tuition companies. Fact 2, Waukee District is comprised of public schools. Fact 3, Waukee School District is a public school and would lose funding. Regardless of your personal feelings about whether or not this bill should be approved, the fact remains, if it passes, Waukee School District will lose substantial funding. So let me remind you, as a school board district member, you agreed to a code of ethics which included the following. I will consider myself a trustee of public education, will do my best to protect it, conserve it, advance it, giving the children of the district the educational facilities that are as complete and adequate as it is possible to provide. Number 2, I will attempt to procure adequate financial support for the district. I should repeat that, and I will. I will attempt to procure adequate financial support for the district. That is in the Code of Ethics as a school board member. I will represent the entire district rather than individual electors, patrons, or groups. In addition, the Waukee School District has comprised a list of legislative priorities, which is available for public review on their website. On the priority list is number 7, public dollars for public use. In its description, it states, we oppose the use of additional taxpayer funds for the creation of vouchers or educational savings accounts, or an increase in tax credits or deductions directed toward non-public schools. Board members, if you do not feel you can support the Code of Ethics that you agree to in the legislative priorities, I would ask that you recuse yourself from the vote. Any vote opposed to this resolution against school vouchers is a direct violation of the Code of Ethics.
Colson Thayer.
Hi, my name's Jeff Rubino, live in Urbandale. Thank you for coming and speaking, and I wish the teacher would have stuck around. I might address a few things that are interesting to everybody, but I'd like to respond to President Lyons' a couple of comments that are in the resolution. It's going to be short because some other people stole some of the things I wanted to go over, but there's a lot to go over in this document. One of the things that hasn't been talked about is the benefits of strong public schools encourage both small and large businesses to invest. This is about the only accurate statement that President Lyons has made in this document. To make it fully accurate, you need to take out the word public. You see, all communities and businesses thrive when the schools thrive. It's pretty simple. You're telling me in our community we'd be better off if we didn't have any school choice, any private schools. How would that make our community better? I don't understand that. Studies overwhelmingly show that where there is school choice is offered, public schools actually get better. This is common sense in any type of competition. Any setting, both parties get better. Iron sharpens iron, and it's good for both. If all of our current public options were so amazingly strong, families wouldn't even consider leaving our school. That's why the last 6 months so many people have been looking at other options. It's because of the things that are going on in our school. And there's a lot of people I've been talking to. I spent Super Bowl Sunday trying to find out where this meeting was that the community was supposed to be involved in. And I was like Nate, I think. He didn't know if he missed something. And I'm calling and emailing and texting everybody, and nobody knew anything about it. So the community really wasn't involved in this. So thank you for bringing that up. The last point I'll make is, again, we're going to talk a little bit about facts. Public school funding has remained at a record low level. I'm going to address this because there's facts, and you can all look this up. Education funding has increased every year for the past 10 years since Republicans controlled all chambers of government. The last time education funding was actually cut was in 2009 when Chet Culver and the Democrats controlled the chamber. Education funding currently takes up 56% of Iowa's overall budget. 56% of the budget. So you're going to be interested in this. The rest of the
Hurry, Mr. Rubino, you're out of time.
As I stated above, on average in 2020, Iowa spent $17,000, I think Amy said something about that too, per student. In 2020, Waukee spent $21,154 per student. Now, get this, that's $423,000 for a class size of 20. $423,000 for a.
Thank you,
class
Mr.
size of
Rubino.
20. Let me say that again, $423,000. This is unbelievable.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. You are out of time.
Almost finished. I just have a couple more things.
I think actually you are finished. Dace, you want to help him out?
I think our discussion should really be about where the money is going.
Thanks.
Bridgette Montgomery.
Is everybody done talking?
We need decorum here, and if you're not going to behave yourselves, you can watch in another room. We are here to have a meeting in the public. You are here as observers. No, we're not here to take questions. We don't take questions. That is not what we do. We do not take questions. Ms. Montgomery.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Bridgette Montgomery, and I have been a Dallas County Urbandale resident since 2007. My husband and I have 3 daughters in the Waukee School District beginning in 2008, and we still have 6 more years to go in the district. I am a proud graduate, parent, and employee of Iowa Public Schools. I am here tonight to thank you for your resolution in opposition to vouchers, or as they are currently being referred to as educational savings accounts. Vouchers, or ESAs, are being touted as a mechanism for school choice. There are currently plenty of opportunities for Iowa families to make choices in how to educate their children. Families can send their kids to private school, open enroll them to another district, or homeschool. Iowa has some of the nation's most expansive homeschool options in the country. By funneling money to ESAs, the majority party in our legislature would allow public tax dollars to go to private schools and even private for-profit tutoring services. This robs our public schools of desperately needed funding. The proposed funding increases offered by the majority party fail to meet even a meager cost of living increase, much less the current rate of inflation. So by putting tax dollars towards ESAs, the state is taking away money that could go towards a more robust increase in state supplemental aid. The United States was founded on the principle that education